think we're live. I'm pretty sure we're live. It's the Modern Relics podcast. We're back. Welcome. How are you, bud?
Hey guys, I'm good. I've had a pretty busy week again. Not quite as hectic as last week. My work week was solid packed.
I think we're live.
Which was great. But this, as far as like afterwards, this weekend for me has been kind of chill. We had, a lot of running around, but nothing that felt like overwhelming. I don't feel as exhausted as I did last week. I actually have a little bit of energy. I put some time into some stuff that we'll get into later.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I'm doing great. How about you? How you feeling?
I'm feeling a lot better. Feeling a lot better. Okay. No more crazy customer service stories this week, thankfully. Still recovering from the last week and last episode, but I am feeling much better. I ran across one of those random Instagram reels that just feeds you stuff, and it's like, how long is he going to watch this so I can feed him more stuff? And this guy was complaining about his electric car and the 137 kilowatts per hour charge rate that his car was on, while the advertised station was 350 kilowatts. So I looked it up. He was at an Electrify America station with an electric car, and his electric car on 137 kilowatts per hour over the advertised 350 kilowatt per charge. Maybe not as exciting. Maybe it's going to take him an extra 40 minutes for his fill up at the service station. But it got me thinking, at 135 kilowatts to charge a car at that moment in time, and I think he was at 137, so just rounding it down for easy math, what does the average home consume per hour for kilowatts per hour? The answer is 1.25, give or take a fractal percentage there. So this guy is consuming at a slow rate 106 homes worth of power per hour on the grid at once. So if all 6 charges were going at once, you could see the exponential growth. Now imagine him at 300. That's like 1,100, give or take, houses on the grid per hour of consumption if all 6 of those charging stations were going at once. And it's a wonder why guys like me are a bit resistant to stuff like this. Now, I'm not opposed to alternative fuels. I'm, in fact, a huge advocate of exploring things like nuclear, right? Because it's not like we're going to be driving around with atomic bombs. It's really just harvesting energy from the decay. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and absolutely. I get there's danger in that too. So maybe we should refine some of that, but the shove it down your throat mentality of everyone just hop on the grid and it's just going to be A-okay. Never mind the rolling blackouts and brownouts that states like New York and California would experience instantaneously and overnight if all of us had chargers at home. But put that into perspective. My man's complaining about 137 kilowatts per hour, which if I give him the benefit of 2 kilowatts, 0.2 kilowatts per hour, he's still drinking up, where's my number? 106 homes worth of power at one time per hour.
Yeah. But that, that is somehow saving the environment.
Right.
Right. That we are transitioning over to some type of power source that I don't even understand how they connect the dots, let alone convince people that this is that this is somehow viable, that this is a viable option. Where does that electricity come from? Oh yeah, generators.
Right.
It doesn't come out of the earth. It's not tree made. This isn't sustainable. It's not reusable. There's none of the terminology that can be applied to this. This is purely fossil fuels, or what they call fossil fuels,
right?
Fueling your massively over exaggerate, this insane energy draw for one car,
right?
For one car. Now, And then, so there's really like, I've never seen a benefit to any of this because I don't believe that they are energy efficient as is proven, especially if you look at the economic
Right.
and environmental crisis that these things cost with the lithium mining and all of the other things. But ultimately, you still need fossil fuels to charge all the to fire up all the generators to create the electrical power stations.
Yeah.
So nothing, and they're slow. They can't travel far. There is no benefit to it, none at all. I
could see Joe Towney that does no driving far, that would require a flight to get everywhere. That's like, you know what? If I charge this up and I can get a good 3 or 4 weeks out of it because I go to the grocery here and there or whatever, it's like pretty much an all right around town car and or electric bicycle would be the way to go. But it's not saving the environment. It's not energy efficient. It's not.
You're going to pay more in your electric costs than you would in the gas.
You might
it doesn't even give you a benefit in that regard as like your own budget, let alone the budget of the power grid. You know, like none of it makes sense. You think, oh, I'm not spending money on gasoline, on fuel, on fossil fuels, but you're literally tripling or quadrupling that just to charge your car. Mm-hmm. So none of it makes sense.
Yeah.
And so
And it's a wonder why we're in constant battles with utility companies raking us over the coals for stuff like this. It's like, well, now they're incentivized to, because none of this was part of any infrastructure development plan anywhere in this country. You know, and I don't want to belabor the whole rare earth mineral mining versus the hundreds of thousands of gallons of diesel that are just burned up into the atmosphere on mining this shit, loading it, having it sent overseas via a big shipping container to then be processed and sent back to North America for, you know, sales, basically, to be sold in America at car dealerships and stuff. It's all a bit silly when you unpack it. Like,
they're also really dangerous on top of that. They are constantly blowing up. The batteries in those things are lighting houses on fire all over the place.
And very expensive, extremely expensive. It's not, you know, a regular car battery just to get the ignition of fire and the alternator trying to charge it is expensive enough, but we're talking sometimes the cost of a small car to replace the battery stack in your modern EV vehicle and stuff. So I don't know. I'm not even that opposed to hybrids with regenerative braking for commuting, so to speak, but the whole I'm the villain for not jumping on board, I'm just not there. So I thought that was funny, and I was like, I'm just going to do a little math on how much this guy's actually consuming while he's complaining about it not being as 1/3 fast. And it's like, well, right, you know, you're going to have to, your gas station stop's going to be 45 minutes, right? Like, I get it, unless you get one of those fast chargers or whatever. But yeah, it was silly. So I thought that was hilarious. I figured I'd share it here. Other than that, not much. I'm the fun parts of homeownership is dealing with the homeowner's insurance and having to replace that. I've got a new insurance company, so I spent a lot of my free time today on the phone with those folks getting policy stuff figured out, because it's time to balance budgets and look at better offers, and that was a pain in the ass. Hopefully worth it, but we'll see. So other than that, pretty much smooth sailing this week.
Awesome. Yeah, as far as stuff going, Kate, my daughter, got her first speeding ticket.
Oh no.
Yeah, and this actually happened a couple weeks ago. About 2 weeks ago. And she called us immediately, and she was actually more mad because she goes, I wasn't speeding. She goes, because there's a construction zone on I-90 in between Coeur d'Alene and our house, and it's 55. And we have a tracker app on her. Like, we have that Life 360 app. Anywhere she goes, we can actually see how fast she's driving. It tells you. The girl's never sped a day in her life, like maybe 1 or 2 miles an hour over, but she's a 18-year-old grandma. Like, she knits in bed, you know, like, and she was offended because as the cop was pulling her over, she had just looked at her speedometer and she was going 58, and she goes, I got to slow down.
Right.
at 58, she was going 3 over, and she's like, I got to slow down. And as the cops started pulling her over, she thought it was for somebody else. She's just like, oh, so they're going to get somebody. And she's like, wait, it's for me? And the cop pulls her over, and I guess she was super rude. And Kate was just like, look, I don't ever speed. And she goes, you were going 68. And she goes, no, I wasn't. She goes, I clocked you at 68. She goes, you didn't. No, you didn't. And so she issued her a ticket. And in a construction zone, it was a $90 ticket, which she has the money to pay. She's got no problem paying it. But she's like, I wasn't. I was like, then contest it. Here's how you do it. And she went down there yesterday to the courthouse to actually contest it. But she had to file for she had to submit for a court date. And so she went down there by herself and just went, this isn't right. I didn't do this. And so, and we kind of loosely have like, tracking data for that basically said the whole day that she was driving, she went 71 at the top.
Right.
And that's like further, like 10 miles down the road in Coeur d'Alene when the freeways are all free and open. Even then, she's going 1 mile an hour over the speed limit.
Right.
Like, and that it gave us the report. She only went 71 the whole day, which is par for the course for her. We never see her ever, because she knows we watch all the time, so we're going to be like, why were you doing 60 and a 45? Like, what were you doing? Like, where were you? And she knows that we'll get her, so she's never ever driving fast. So she's going to go down there and fight that, and I have a good feeling that she'll probably win. Yeah, because cops don't like coming in for contested tickets. They have to show up, and then they'd have to bring the radar. They'd have to prove so much stuff that chances are they're just like, throw it out. Who cares?
When was the last time this was calibrated? Blah blah blah. Yeah, and I think I don't know if it's still the case, but I think if they don't show up, it's automatically thrown out. Right.
It is. Yeah. Okay. That is the case. So so we'll see how that goes. She's got, I think, the 16th of February is her court date for it.
Mark your calendars.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Should we bring her on the pod for a court date sentencing party if she gets off scot-free?
I would love to. Yeah, I would love to, but she's like, I barely see her anymore. She's been working 40 plus hours a week at the coffee stands now. Jeez. So like, yeah, she's just grinding. She's going. So I'm like, all right, you're an adult now. Go for it. Nope. She's already getting lots of accolades, and she'll probably be going into some shift leader position before too long. But yeah, so besides that, I put together a list for you.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. You want to do it?
Let's do it.
So, all right, for the people listening and watching, last week, Angel, we had decided the week previous to put together what our dream cabinet would be on a political level for the United States of America. So basically and it could be from anybody in history, from any kind of walk of life. We didn't necessarily have to pull them from a political field, and also just basically who we would like to see in a designed cabinet that would kind of govern the country the way we would like to see it governed. And kind of a fantasy football team, or like a dream team kind of situation, like the 92 NBA basketball Olympics, that kind of scenario. So
it's our consideration for Hall of Fame, sort of what we would do for the president, the vice president, and some key cabinet members. And this is your rebuttal. So we went through mine last week. If you didn't catch that, you could check it out on YouTube or Spotify. I'm excited. I only got this picture of your choices minutes before we fired up the pod, so I haven't read through the whole thing. So I'm excited, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Is there any way that you can pull up on your screen your choices?
Not that you'll be able to see, or the
okay,
guests.
That's fine. I don't mind.
But yeah, I can pull that up.
The guests can't see it.
Not yet, no, because I have to I have to actually change.
Okay.
I need to build a scene for that, basically.
Okay,
Basically, our tech support needs tech support.
Well, speaking of which, that got sent off to Dell, by the way.
Good.
Yeah, it's all getting taken care of. So
I was actually not calling him out there. I just meant literally our tech support needs tech support. But
it's my job. It's my job to call him out. So yeah.
Oh, we have a couple of the same answers. This is fun.
Yeah, there was a couple that I agreed with.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Okay.
All right. You want to start from the top and work my way down?
Any order you want to take it. So remember, everybody, this is literally us just drafting people into these positions based on what we'd like to see. Yeah.
So a lot of people would probably venture to guess that out of the gate, I'm just going to put Trump at president, but that's not the case. Like, I like the guy. I'm going to vote for the guy. I think he's the best president of my lifetime. However, my all-time favorite president, due to his governing and his style of governance,
right?
His style was our 30th president, which is Calvin Coolidge. So
Calvin Coolidge.
He was the president from 1923 to 1929, and that's an odd number of years, if you noticed. Calvin Coolidge was the vice president to Harding, and Harding died unexpectedly, and he took over the last 2 years of his term, as the vice president does, and then handily, overwhelmingly got elected the next year, or after that term was up, and actually did a wonderful job, and was actually known for possibly being a part of the economic boom that was the Roaring '20s, right before the Great Depression.
Right.
But he was kind of a small government, like real small government. In fact, he was known as Silent Cal. He was like, let's not get in the way of freedom. Let's not get in the way of let's not make extra rules on top of the Constitution. Let's not do that. So anytime like Congress or the Senate would try to fluff up and create bills all the time, his whole thing is he would veto them. No, it's not fixed. If it's not broken, don't fix it. It's fine.
Hitting the big red button left and right.
All over the place. And he could have won another term. In fact, he was so popular that they were begging him to run again for his second term, which would have then put him in the office for 10 solid years. And he declined. He said, nope, no man needs to be in the office for 10 years. I've done my duty and I'm going to go back home. And he did a lot of other things. He was a great governor and a bunch of other stuff, but he was a really great president. I have a picture of him like right up there that I've had for a long time. Calvin Coolidge is my dude. I even have the Pez dispenser in my station at the shop.
He could have given us term limits if he felt that strongly about it. Then we wouldn't have career politicians.
That's true. But he doesn't have the authority to do that.
I know.
Congress, Convention of States, and Congress and Senate with a supermajority or 2/3 majority would actually have to be able to pass that. So we have Calvin. Where's Hobbes?
Yeah.
Well, we've got Calvin up there because I think I would like a president who has a big hammer and a soft voice. Somebody who's going to sit up there and just go, no, we're not doing that.
Right.
We're not doing that either. We're going to shrink as much of this as possible. Keep in mind, too, much like I said with your cabinet, that I'm filling names into cabinets that I don't think exist.
Right. Yeah. The caveat here, if you haven't listened to last week, is that there's many of these positions we would outright do away with if we got to just pick a dream scenario. But for the effort of a decent draft board, we just pinned them in because they exist today. Yeah.
So my VP, who I think would just be an incredibly amazing advisor of the same tone as Calvin Coolidge, is the great Ron Paul.
Let's go.
And Ron Paul, I think if I didn't have Coolidge as president, I would want Ron Paul.
Yeah.
And it would be a fantastic ticket for the two of them. I think that they are very similarly minded, and I think that they would share the same ideals as far as like American exceptionalism without unnecessary global intervention and keeping us out of stuff that we don't belong.
Right.
Ending
Trundling along in places we ought not trundle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You're absolutely right. And, ending the Fed, that's something Ron Paul,
Do you think Ron Paul lost because at one point in time he ran libertarian, and so the right just said you're not blue blood enough, basically?
He wasn't establishment enough.
Yeah,
he wasn't handpicked out of, the establishment, and he was running against stuff that really scared them, mainly ending the Fed.
Right.
They don't like it whenever anybody says something like that, and that was kind of what he ran on, and everybody was cheering him from the country. Yeah, end the Fed. But he, the powers that be were like, whoa, no, we're all in their pockets. You can't do
not handpicked by the Republican Party. However, on this podcast, we like our presidents and vice presidents like we like our coffee, which is handpicked by Juan Valdez. So could you imagine just riding up on the burro in the morning and gracias Juan Valdez, Ron Paul's a good
Ron Paul.
Ron Paul's a great pick. And honestly, I'm a bigger fan of Ron Paul than Rand Paul. And
I do like Rand, but his dad is a superior. Yeah, absolutely.
I would have loved to see that get a hell of a lot more traction. I mean, even to the Bernie Sanders level of traction for the opposition, which is like, this is never going to go anywhere, but
yeah,
keep riling up the youth, It's unfortunate that it stopped before it got started, more or less, but that would have been a hell of a ticket. I'm on board.
He's still alive, but he's getting pretty up there. I've seen some recent interviews, and he's still got it, but it takes a little longer to get there.
Yeah,
and so yeah, we got Coolidge and Ron Paul, and then I think the next on your list was the chief of staff, if I'm not mistaken. Right. So my and I actually spelt that wrong on there. I think the best chief of staff who understands the job really well. He's actually a lawyer on top of that. He's an incredibly gifted mind who has a lot, like he worked with Devin Nunes, and he's actually somebody who's but Kash Patel. Kash Patel, I think, is probably one of the most gifted political minds and younger political minds. And I think that he has an axe to grind. I think that he would make a great chief of staff and cut out all of the swamp outside of the White House, because he knows all of them. He knows who they are. He'd go in there swinging and just yank them all out. You're bad, you're fired, fired. And then hire trusted people that he knows that, would work with the administration properly and for the American people properly. And so I think Kash Patel would be a really good chief of staff, and he's not afraid to do the things that need to be done within that capacity. So I think that would be really great.
On board.
And I think we both agree on the next one, which is Donald J. Trump for press secretary, just for the pure lulls, just for the absolute circus show that would be. Every day I would pay-per-view. I don't care. Right. I would watch it. So I think that would be TV's best show for 4 years.
Yeah, I'm already subscribing, liking, and sharing with friends on Press Secretary Donald J. Trump. Could you just imagine, like, the very first time the press gets let into the room and they're just like, they're just crumpling up the questions and chucking them because it's just going to get hammered over and over and over again.
And with Coolidge and Ron Paul dude, Kash Patel would just be like absolutely do it. Just do it. He's just prodding him from behind. Yeah, just go out there. Yeah, say whatever you want. It's fine. Well, Ron Paul and Calvin Coolidge would just be the calm dudes in the background just getting work done. and like just cutting everything and trimming the budget and just being, and you've just got this absolute insane blowhard on a stage, just calling everybody fat and ugly and just like stupid. Oh, it's just
live streaming on X, formerly Twitter, all of the
from
conferences from his own phone. Yeah. God, that would be great.
Yeah. So, Attorney General.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, you had Mr. Shapiro there, correct?
I did. I had Ben Shapiro.
Okay. Yep. My pick for Attorney General is also my pick for the replacement for Ronna McDaniel for the National Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
Is Harmeet Dillon. And Harmeet Dillon, if you're not familiar with Harmeet, she is probably the scariest lawyer in the United States right now. And the reason being is that during all of the lockdowns, during COVID, she is a constitutional juggernaut.
Yeah.
And she's somebody who moved here from India when she was very little. I've actually personally met her.
Oh, wow.
And she's fantastic. She's actually the hired law firm for one of our local political organizations, the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee. So if any defamation comes their way, she just throws a sledgehammer at them. But she is the one who helped out any businesses or any churches that actually were getting shut down during the lockdowns. She understands on a level of fury the protection of our inalienable rights and understands the Constitution. That is the type of person who I want as an attorney general. Somebody who at the top of that pyramid is going to make sure everyone underneath her is abiding by this set of laws that were given to us that protect us, not the government. And I think that she'd be the perfect person for that job. So, and she's a tiger. So she knits really well too. She knits hats and stuff for everybody.
Nice.
Chief Justice. I also am sharing that John Adams. That was a brilliant move, and I really appreciated that one. So John Adams absolutely is our Chief Justice. I don't think that there's a better choice within our history.
I mean, at some point we're gonna have to give the man a day off, but he could just keep doing term after term after term. That's fine.
So you had provided 3 other Supreme Court justices. I did.
Yep.
And so I still want to keep a handful of what we've got. We've got Alito. Right. We've got Clarence Thomas.
Yeah.
So I just want to replace the 3 that I don't like: Sotomayor, Kagan, and that other one. So
who did I have in there as well? I think I threw William Taft in there, didn't I?
You did. You did. But you kept no. You brought back
Thomas
Alito.
and Alito. Yeah, Thomas Alito and William Taft, and then John Adams, Chief Justice. Yeah.
So if I'm just going to want to replace the 3 that I don't like, I'm replacing them with the one you picked for Prez. I want Trey Gowdy. I want Trey Gowdy in there, just with every bit of his double-edged logic and just swinging it like a sword.
He's my favorite reindeer.
He's just so surgical. And once again, much like Harmeet, understands it. And he actually bounced back and forth with AG and Harmeet for me. So I almost put him in AG. But yeah, he'd be a great Supreme Court justice. Mike Huckabee. He brilliant, sound, very collected mind. I do believe he'd worked in law before, but he's been around the block many times and has a very solid understanding of law and the Constitution. I think he'd be great. And then just for fun, I threw Rudy Giuliani on there.
Here's where I push back a little bit. I would probably put Giuliani in like the Homeland Security role or someplace like that. But before the whole mayorship, did he work in law? That must be his background.
He was one of Trump's
one of
lawyers.
Trump's lawyers. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, I
he's
don't hate
actually
it.
a really good lawyer.
Yeah,
So,
I don't hate it.
yeah. And the man loves the country, you know, and I think he would do whatever it took to protect it.
Yeah.
And he's a very smart lawyer, and he's a legal mind. He has a YouTube channel that he actually posts quite a bit on, and it's actually fun to kind of pick his brain on certain things that are going on in the country and watch him kind of explain things from his legal perspective. So
yeah, he did remarkable work pulling the crime rates down
100%,
in New York, like exponentially better than anybody before him. Post mob era to present day was
he took down the mob,
pretty much remarkable. Yeah.
So that was his big thing, is that he was like, I'm going to clean up the city. I'm going to take out the mob. And he did. And no matter how much, the other political side hates Giuliani, they cannot take away the credit that he was given by flipping the city from the crime infested nonsense that it was in the late 70s and 80s into what it became. And now it's back to nearly what it was prior to him. But yeah, he was, New York's mayor. He was, America's mayor, from what a lot of people would say. But I think he would make a great legal mind in that regard. So
yeah. So we got Trey Gowdy, Mike Huckabee, Rudy Giuliani as the replacements. We're sharing the hallmark John Adams for Chief Justice. Yeah, I love it. So far, I love it.
What do we got next?
Secretary of State, correct?
Yeah. Yep. And I had to think about this one for a while because, the Secretary of State is somebody who once is third in line. Mm-hmm. So if we, for whatever reason, lose Coolidge and Paul, I got to think about who's running the House and the Senate with the core principles that I think I would want somebody to run that, but also who's next in line, and my choice was Patrick Henry. Give me liberty or give me death, Patrick Henry. And if you haven't had a chance to kind of delve into that speech thoroughly, it is some of the most moving, patriotic, full of fire and passion and understanding and intelligence. The man was unrelenting and unforgiving for his love of his family, for his love of the duty he has to not only his family but to this country. It's a pretty remarkable, insanely good speech. So I highly recommend, if you're watching this, just go look it up. It's on the internet. It's on the internet. Amazing. But there's also a really funny version, but it's really, really actually very in depth as well. But it's just done in modern vernacular, by a gentleman named John Ward, and it's hard to find, but on YouTube he actually did Patrick Henry's speech, and it's very crass. There's a lot of cuss words in it, but it is pretty powerful. It's a very powerful rendition of it because he breaks it down into modern terms, and it really goes verse by verse by verse by verse and breaks it down, and it's incredibly well done. So, but I just highly recommend going and listening to Patrick Henry. But I just think that kind of that type of force in that seat would be a really good choice. So, and especially if he ends up taking over because we lose the other two for death or whatever, that's the strength I want coming up out of that chair, coming up out of the chair going, yeah, all right, I'll take the mantle, and then going, we're in a crisis and I'm going to handle it.
Yeah.
That's the guy. So, I think the next one was Secretary of Education, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Now I had Peterson here.
Yeah.
Interested to see where you go.
Great. Peterson's great. But once again, this is one of those that I think should just plain and simply disappear. But if I can't just abolish this this seat entirely. I'm going to give it to probably one of the most venerated and amazing scholars and educators, writers, and theologians of our time, which is C.S. Lewis.
Nice.
I think C.S. Lewis is one of the most intelligent human beings in the last 200 years. I think that the man is an incredibly insightful and theologian, but I mean, he's just incredible, like from beginning to end. And if I'm going to put the hands of the public education of our youth in the United States in the hands of anybody, it's going to be a man who is so close to God and so close to academia and blending the two that I feel it should be done. C.S. Lewis would be my pick of somebody who would build an education system foundation better than anybody in history. And so, yeah, he was my pick for Secretary of Education.
Now, if you're listening to this is also a job that we would immediately abolish. So we would hire C.S. Lewis and immediately give him a pink slip and banish that shit to Narnia. However,
which he would be happy about.
Yeah. However, I like the pick. I like the pick a lot.
Secretary of Defense, and I think I brought this up last time.
Yeah.
I think that I kind of dropped it in as my pick, but General Patton.
Can't argue that.
Yeah, there's never been somebody who understood warfare better than that man and understood defensive strategy, offensive strategy. The man was a legend throughout the world.
Right.
It's not just an American legend. Patton was known universally as probably the greatest military mind of our time, and putting him at the helm of that, I think, would be excellent and also terrifying for the rest of the world. I think everybody else would be like, yeah, we're going to all behave until that guy's no longer around.
Right. I was going to say at least feared at the very least.
Yeah, absolutely. So that being said, I think that our country would, and especially under this executive branch, I think it would be he would be very well respected by them, and they would actually really just give him a lot of loose tethers to be able to kind of do what he needed to do because they trusted him as well.
Yeah, I think that's a person that would have enough agency to do the job extremely well without a hell of a lot of scrutiny or people wondering why we're involved in shit we shouldn't be from that perspective.
Right. So now underneath that, we've got our 3 directors.
Am I reading that right? Your next one? Homeland Security?
Yeah.
Oh, talk to me on this one.
Okay. So once again, all 3 of these do not need to exist and need to go away.
Yep.
So, but if I've got to put somebody in these spots, Director of Homeland Security, which is, this is going to be a weird one, but I'm putting Tucker Carlson in the seat of Homeland Security.
Talk to me about this.
Well, Tucker Carlson does have a CIA background. And on top of that, he is known worldwide, and which I think we're going to talk about here in a little bit, but he actually is currently in the middle of coming back from Moscow from being the only person alive who can actually go over and actually talk to Putin himself. So he's doing an interview, which is going to, like,
that's bananas to me.
It's bananas.
Yeah.
And the fact that man has that type of clout.
Right.
But
I thought
he also
Kim
has
Jong-un asking for Dennis Rodman was weird. This is almost weirder. Yeah.
Yeah. But Tucker, everyone knows him. He's got what's it called? People everywhere.
Yeah, right.
He's got all, he's got contacts,
very connected guy.
Everything.
Yeah.
Very connected. And very trusted. So I think the man has the chops on the connectivity level. the world stage and a lot of other things to be the guy who could protect our borders the best. And I think that it would be a very off the beaten path type of job for him, but I think that he would step
I'd
up
say
and actually
so.
do it. Yeah. But I think that he'd be able to do it. I think he would be able to, he's a smart man. He'd be able to put the pieces where they need to go in order to protect our borders. And I think that he has the right mindset to protect the borders. He sees what the problems are. And he's diplomatic. Like, let's say he's got to, our Department of Homeland Security is in constant negotiations, especially with Mexico and a couple of other places. You need somebody who has negotiation power. You need somebody who has who has the ability, the gift of gab, somebody who's going to be able to make that bridge, but still hold a hard line. And I think that he's got that in the bag. So it just makes sense to me. So odd one, but I agree.
I was gonna say it's a bit out there, but I'm following where you're going. It's like these translatable skills here and there. Yeah, good work.
Next is director of CIA.
Let's go.
And none other than the dearly departed, but the late great Andrew Breitbart. And for very similar reasons, as Tucker is, where he had connections and had leakers everywhere giving him information. But the man had a fiery soul and a fiery passion for America, and he hated corruption, hated it. And so, and he was a fighter. I mean, I probably once a month I play this video clip on YouTube of him like sitting in a chair and talking about like, you're going to do this to us. You're going to do this to us. You're going to do this to us. And he looks at the screen and he goes, fuck you. And he just sits there and he looks and he goes, war.
Right.
And and it was that kind of mentality that he had all the time. And I think that he had the intelligence, he had the operational ability, he had the, that he would run a intelligence program, because I mean he created Breitbart News,
right?
And he was respected everywhere outside of corruption. Corruption hated him, but man, he would run after it with a cape on, just going after it, you know. And so I think that I want that type of honesty. I want that type of integrity. I want that type of firebrand. I want that guy in charge of the CIA, because that man will not allow bad things to happen within that system. And I'm okay with it. If I have to have the CIA, go ahead.
It's less left field than Carlson, but you're doing a great sales pitch. I actually agree with this one quite a bit. Yeah.
Right. So, the director of FBI, my pick on this one is Jack Posobiec.
Nice.
And are you familiar with Jack?
I am.
Posobiec? Okay. So Jack Posobiec actually used to work for the FBI, and he has very similar qualities that Andrew Breitbart has. But I think on more intelligence levels rather than just political levels.
Yep.
And I think that he would make just a great director of the FBI. I just think he would. I think that he would be able to bring a levity that needs to be there, but he would also be a guy who cleans house. He would be a guy who would be loyal to the American people before any administration.
Yep.
And he's got a good, solid, faith-based background that you can't and he's just a quality human and very, very smart. And so I think that he would just kind of fit the role well. So that's who I would put in as director of FBI. I think he's solid. He's got the chops for it. So then we go over to the Secretary of Treasury. And you had the guy who actually, Smith, right? The guy who invented basically.
Adam Smith, and then John Maynard Keynes I had below that. So the father of modern capitalism as an economical construct is where I went. I kind of cheated a little, maybe, but hey.
Yeah. Well,
That's my boy.
I've got a double whammy on this one too, where it's my serious one.
Oh God, I see it now. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's also because I think these guys would make a good team for a yin and yang kind of quality to them.
Yeah. Immediately I see this as a parent. Yeah.
Yep. So for anything economic, anybody who's in the economics world where they're talking about financial systems within the borders of the United States of any kind, or even globally,
right,
most of them will reference one individual who is currently still alive, and that is the great Thomas Sowell. And Thomas Sowell is probably one of, on top of just being incredibly philosophically, he's also one of the great economic minds of our time, and he's written many, many books on the matter. And it has been a shame that nobody in our history has put this guy in a cabinet anywhere.
Right.
But he's a wonderful human being and a wonderful gifted mind when it comes to things of finance. Right. And so he's my pick for Secretary of Treasury. The Deputy Secretary of Treasury, I think we need somebody who's a little less safe sometimes, but still understands money on a level that might be a balance to maybe Thomas Sowell being too safe on certain things. And a little middle ground would be made when you put none other than the prez of Barstool Sports, Dave Portnoy, in the place of the Deputy of Secretary of Treasury.
Could you imagine a poker game between Thomas Sowell and Dave Portnoy?
It would be
fold,
my favorite
fold.
thing.
I'm all in. Fold. I'm all in. Fold.
So yeah, playing it safe and then playing it risky, and the guy who's willing to take a chance and the guy who wants to make sure that he's not gonna abandon logic.
Right.
So, you've got those two polar opposites, but they both know how to make money properly.
Right.
And manage money properly. So it's just from two different perspectives. And I think that it would be beneficial to have somebody who's willing to take a little risk every once in a while and somebody who plays it safe all the time.
And two people that I think would welcome oversight.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
correct.
know what I mean? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then for Speaker of the House, and I had to really think about this one because I was like, who holds my values but is smart enough and has the gift of speaking, who understands the English language on a level that most people don't, who can riff, who can write, but riff off of his dome like nobody else. Right. And this is going to be, and the Speaker of the House doesn't have to be either a senator or a congressman.
Correct.
It can be
it can be me. Yeah.
Yep. And as long as they vote in the Speaker of the House, that's it. That's the person right there, right? So the Speaker of the House, I'm going with Razor Fist. And if you're not familiar with Razor Fist, best YouTuber out there.
Very popular YouTuber.
Yeah. But the man is literally genius. If you have a chance and you've got about a little over an hour, watch his absolute
there's not a topic he produces you won't enjoy, even for the reactive nature of what it is, but it is highly researched and very, very intellectually thought out. It's just delivered in a very slick ass fast food kind of crass cool guy, new era delivery method.
Long-haired metal dude who wears like gloves and he's like, I'm Razor Fist. God effing speed, and like
1970s Coke dealer aviator sunglasses. Like he's a caricature of himself for sure. But the nature of his content is fascinating.
Yeah, Sebastian Gorka of the America First podcast loves this guy and
Yeah.
brings him on all the time because he's like, I don't get you.
Right.
I'm in a totally different world, but everything you say is on point and wildly intelligent. So,
Right.
and yeah, Razor Fist, I've been watching him for a couple years now. I got turned on to him by my buddy Justin, and but like he did a video on Abraham Lincoln's presidency that'll blow your mind.
I watched that.
Yeah. So, but I think there's a purity and an honesty there and an intelligence there and the ability to wordsmith that I've never seen in another human being before. And I think he would make a remarkable moral compass and also a somebody who can talk anybody into the ground. And so I think he would make a great Speaker of the House.
I agree. So I love it.
That completes my list as far as like the ones that were presented on the last one. I did have a couple of like the Democratic House leader I thought was kind of important. If I'm going to pick a Democrat, now my first pick was Tulsi Gabbard. I wouldn't mind having her as the Democratic House leader. That being said, she's recently denounced the Democratic Party and doesn't really have a political home right now. She's still a Democrat. She's just the best one of them. Or Jimmy Dore from the Jimmy Dore Show, because that guy's had a remarkable evolution in the last like 2 years, and he's actually the one kind of leftist show that I can watch and not hate.
Yeah,
and so
I would agree with that.
Jimmy Dore quite a bit. He just seems to be sensible and funny, so I don't mind him at all. He would, if I've got to put somebody just as a placeholder for the Democrats, it's going to be one of these two because I don't mind either one of them.
It's remarkable to me, the runner-ups and even some of the names that are on your list that were on my scratch board.
Oh yeah,
like not joking. I had Rudy Giuliani on there, and I think you're about to get into it, so I won't bury the lead here. But you have two names on here that I also had as potentials for different roles.
There's three names that I've got here that were just kind of people that I would love to put into the cabinet somewhere. I don't know where a place would be. I enjoy these people, and I think they've got great minds, and I think they've got the conviction of principles that I align with. So, and first, I think you had mentioned last time Candace Owens.
Yep.
And I think she was a possible secondary for Department of Education, if I wasn't mistaken.
I was eyeballing her for the education department. Yep.
Yeah. I think that wherever we can put her would be great. Carrie Lake is another one. And, I bounced around with her in a couple of spots, but there was just other people who kind of edged her out a little bit. But I love her fire and I love her passion. And I love the fact that she dismantles reporters. She's sharp as a tack. It cannot be argued, that you can't put her on Saturday Night Live like they did with Sarah Palin, who's a wonderfully intelligent human being, but for some reason she came off as with the ability that they could tease that she was dumb, but she wasn't. But they can't do that with her. They can't do that with Carrie Lake. And Carrie Lake, I think, is throwing grenades everywhere in the right places, and I like it. She had a fiery awakening. She was just a regular normie and realized what was going on through the news, and it just woke her up. And she's smart enough to pretty much do anything. Yeah. And I'm cool with putting her in a number of different places. Hopefully she does get her Senate seat and then just kind of climbs up from there, and we can find her later on. And then the other one is just a personal one. I love Matt Christensen of the Matt Christensen show, Matt and Blonde. But if you watch his videos, the man is so level-headed. The man is so reasonable. The man understands how to analytically dissect topics and be able to present them without emotion, but with a little bit of humor. Like, he's got a good sense of humor, but he really can cut the fat off of stuff and really make you realize what's actually going on. And I don't know what exactly the role would be in there, but I absolutely would love to see him in some type of political role. The man just had his second child. He has two now that are under the age of 3. But and strangely, one of his sons is named Calvin. But yeah, I think that like
Was he named after Calvin Coolidge?
I don't think so. It might have been. I'll ask him at some time. But yeah. So that is my cabinet.
Well done, man.
Well, thank you.
Well done. I like it. I'm pleasantly surprised, and I mean by a couple of the names on here that are pleasant surprises.
Like whom?
C.S. Lewis for 1 and Razorfist
cool.
for 2.
Couldn't be 2 more polar opposite people in history. Yeah.
But it's scrappy. I like it.
Could you live under this presidency, this cabinet? Would this be something that
easily? The one name on here that I need two names that I need to research quite a bit more than I have is Jack Posobiec in the FBI and Harmeet Dillon for AG.
Okay.
Those are just 2 people I'm not as familiar with. I am familiar with Jack more so, based on history with FBI and press. But other than that, 100%. Yeah, especially for the Trump press secretary show, which we both we both named our press secretary. So
yeah, that's awesome.
I love it. You want to see what I would do the other direction real quick, and I'll just hammer through them.
Yeah. Oh, you mean the
not so real one?
Basically, the League of what is the Justice League's the Masters of Evil or whatever. The Justice League polar opposite, right?
Yeah. I'll go cash up to president. So we'll start with Secretary of Treasury, which I have Jim Traficant. So Jim Traficant was found guilty on 10 felony counts of financial corruption and sentenced to 8 years in prison and then expelled from the House of Representatives in 2002. Thought that'd be fun to just throw him back in as the Treasury Secretary. Jordan Belfort for his deputy, which...
the Wolf of Wall Street.
You can't lose with the Wolf of Wall Street. FBI Director Peter Strzok, I think...
Wait, I think he just, Jordan actually just...
He did.
Back Trump? Am I not mistaken?
Yep.
Did I just hear that this week? Oh,
yep.
That's hilarious.
He did.
But yeah.
Peter Strzok, Director of FBI, Trey Gowdy's favorite human.
Yeah, no, that guy's a solid choice. Solid human being.
I went with a little nepotism on the Homeland Security and Director of CIA and hired the Dannon brothers, Moyad and Mahdi. So if you're unfamiliar with that, the Dannon brothers, let's see, I have them written down here. They're sentenced to more than 35 years combined for manufacturing and distributing machine guns intended for ISIS. So let's just put them at the top. Lloyd Frendenall.
Whoa.
Lloyd Frendenall will be our Secretary of Defense, and Lieutenant General Lloyd Ralston Frendenall was a general officer for the U.S. Army who served in World War II. But he's best known for his leadership failure during the Battle of Kasserine Pass, which led to America's worst defeat in World War II, and then he was subsequently relieved of his command. And there's a whole story around that. Interesting wiki article, too. William Vahey, Secretary of Education. William Vahey's a not even human. It was an American school teacher that over, I think, the course of 15 years, sexually assaulted a bunch of kids. Not good. Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State. We're just keeping Blinken right where he's at. Just
right where he's at.
Let's tread water.
Don't even move him. He made, I don't know. You saw that they're throwing impeachment stuff at him this week, right? Yeah.
I did. As I say,
we'll see if it's got any teeth on it.
Spread it on. Mary Kay Holthus as Chief Justice, and this was a meme. It's the gal from the judge from Las Vegas that was recently attacked at the sentencing hearing.
Yeah. Just
give
her
an
memes. Honorary.
Just throw her in there.
Yeah. She deserves it.
That's resume points. She's been through enough.
Deserves it. Yeah, that's right.
She
knows how to take a punch.
Attorney General Johnny Cochran.
If the gloves don't fit,
you must acquit.
You must acquit. Yeah. All right, why not? Yeah, I mean, if there's one guy who can just overlook criminality, it's that guy. So it would be the perfect guy for the role in this cabinet.
Win at all costs,
Right.
Human decency be damned.
Yeah.
God rest his soul. You know this guy, Press Secretary Larry Craig. You remember Larry Craig?
No, well, I do. I live in the state that Larry Craig became famous.
Yeah, was arrested for lewd conduct in a men's restroom at the Minneapolis St. Paul International Airport back in 2007. Entered a guilty plea to lesser charge of disorderly conduct the following year. Fantastic representation. Let's throw him in front of the press full time. Hopefully he stays clothed. Chief of Staff Anthony David Weiner. Let's get Anthony Weiner back in there, but put him as the Chief of Staff. I think just the moral compass on this guy strong enough to lead a winning cabinet choices. Would be great.
Podesta approves.
Yeah. Vice President Beto O'Rourke. I mean, we don't need a Second Amendment at all.
At all. No.
We could do away with a few others too. Maybe the 8th. I don't know. Beto O'Rourke is vice president, answering to, of course, Hillary Rodham Clinton, your president of the United States. This is called a winning strategy, this cabinet. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Man, there is no better list to get me to move to any other country on the planet. Like, that would be if these people were in place as you set them, I would.
You guys think I'm joking? I made pictures. See? That was the United States of America draft. Obviously, I'm joking. This whole thing would just be a cluster of failure from the top to the bottom. A lot of these folks don't even have decent enough credentials to have the jobs they had, let alone get promoted into seats of government authority. So,
well, the good thing about it is that it would only be for 4 years, because after that 4 years, the entire country would not exist anymore. Right. They would. So
that's an interesting thought experiment. That's an interesting thought experiment. If this was the last or second to last president this country had, present day, right now, what happens to America? Do you think we fold into the EU?
Well, biblically, we're not mentioned. Obviously, we brought that up before. Do we get folded into the EU? I don't know. What I think that I highly
we just
doubt
give
the
Michigan
EU,
to Justin Trudeau, or what? Like, I mean, seriously, what happens to the governance around
a conglomerate of China at some point? Because when we economically collapse, which is probably bound to happen first, who's going to swoop in to buy us?
I don't know that China can, believe it or not.
Well, they can actually, because they're actually falling through with they're going through with creating steps that in certain states that say that they cannot buy land. So there are actually avenues where China can actually come in and probably buy up debt from us that we have accumulated, and actually sooner or later through different channels end up being technically the majority owner of the United States.
I could see that being like a majority shareholder in what's left of the United States predicated on that, but I don't think they have the raw resources, because behind the shroud of what we see for their developing, even like the third world development pieces of China, it's kind of a false front. Like, there's almost nothing underneath the surface to support long-term growth in certain areas of China, which is like eye-opening when you think about, oh, I thought they were like, the world's, I don't know, X number economic power or whatnot, but you're probably right. I don't know who else could do it.
I don't think the EU is strong enough at this point. It would probably be, the EU is struggling to keep its own small countries within its grasp. So it's going to be very difficult for them to come across the pond and re-scoop up the land. But I don't know what exactly it would look like. I think that there would probably be a power struggle over the vacuum that is left to a collapsing nation such as this. And there would probably be fractured military factions such as Texas and other places that are holding off their borders. But I think there would be kind of a salvage group here and there that came in and scooped up, some portions of resource rich areas of the country.
For
but
no reason, Sweden just inherits Delaware or something random like that.
yeah. So, but yeah, it is a fun thought experiment to try to figure out like
what would happen. Who would envelop most of the United States if that were the case?
One thing's for certain, nobody, and I mean nobody in the greater portion of the world would even consider to just giving it back to the Native Americans.
No, it'd be very low on the list, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yep. So,
sovereign nation? Nah, we'll buy them. Aw. Well, so that's it. That was part 2, or Lucky's rebuttal of the United States of America draft, presented by Modern Relics Podcast.
Presented by Home Depot.
Presented by Home Depot. Yeah. We're kidding, Home Depot, unless you actually want to sponsor the show, and then
then we're totally not kidding at all.
Give me a call.
Yeah.
No, that was excellent, man. When we build a social media presence, we will post our draft boards next to one another in the episodic history. It'll be a great time. So in other news, you had a couple of other topics you wanted to bring up just to kind of chat through, which I am not as read in on, but I will frantically try to come up with a take if one is necessary.
Some of them aren't even really are stuff that I'm super read up on because they're kind of fresh and I don't really know much about it. But I just loved the concept of it.
Oh, so yeah, like, the Putin interview for sure. Like, do we know when this is going to hit public consumption in America?
There's speculation that it's going to be within the next couple of days, and everybody's reporting on it, and they're all reporting on it in the capacity that this is going to be far and away probably the most important piece of news media of our lifetimes, if not more than that. But the speculation of what is going to come out from this is ranging everything from a nothing burger of just Putin just kind of giving softball stuff to extreme revelations that are terrifying to certain people within the United States and Europe. And I'm fascinated, I think, as well as the rest of the world. And I think that there was only one human being on the planet that could have pulled that off. That is able to. I don't like like Snowden's already there, right? And Snowden probably could have pulled it off, but it wouldn't have had the same clout.
There's some gravitas to this. Yeah,
and that he's still not an exiled guy, and he's a lifetime journalist. So it is. I don't think anybody else could have pulled this off, and so this is going to be fascinating to see what actually comes of this in the next couple of days. I'm going to be really, really excited to check this out. So
me too.
I don't really have anything else because I don't think anybody else has anything else on this. I think that everyone's just kind of biting their nails and holding their breath, waiting for it to drop. But
yeah, I'm interested. Like, is he going to release this through YouTube? Like, I'm certain Tucker has his own channels, but post Fox, X. I don't know what it is.
It's not YouTube. Won't be YouTube. They'll take it down.
Take it down.
He's gonna do it through Elon Musk on X. That's the only, and because Tucker's been doing a lot of X Spaces, doing all of his interviews. Everything has all been through X/Twitter. So that's probably where it's gonna drop, and it's gonna blow up the internet. So I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be a weird timeline, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see how that turns out. I'm not as post-apocalyptic in my early thoughts toward this, as I'm sure other people might be. But I would like to know, like, what part of to your point, which Putin are we going to get? Are we just towing the Russian line? Is this just some, fluff ball, whatever? But I also don't think Tucker's going to pull punches with difficult questions as well. And I would like to.
He hasn't in the past with anything else that he's ever done. So.
Yeah, I'd like to see how it turns out. But yeah, I mean, since we don't know and can't really give you the tip, just keep your eyes peeled. I mean, we're going to be, I guess. So
I've seen rumors circulating that they're not allowing him back in the United States now, though. I don't know how much validity is behind that, but I saw Twitter rumblings of people saying, yeah, they're not letting him back in.
Wait, the Russians are keeping him there, or the U.S. won't let him back across?
The U.S. won't let him back in because they think that it's that he's a spy.
Sure.
Yeah. So, but I'm sure that they've probably created contingencies for that. I would imagine he wasn't going to go over there willy-nilly without some backup plans. So. Right. In other news, Disney's getting sued again.
This I'm excited about.
Me too. And this is another story that I only know kind of the headline, but I just love the idea of it. Gina Carano from the Mandalorian TV show, which my daughter and my wife absolutely loved her character. And she's an ex-pro wrestler and bodybuilder and fighter, an MMA fighter, but she was
also in Deadpool and did a couple other films. Yep. Yeah.
So she had a kind of a newly booming acting career, and she wasn't anything to write home about, but her character on that show was actually pretty cool, and they could have done a lot with it. She said something to the effect of like, we shouldn't, something about like, let's not recreate othering people so that we end up going down the vein of like the Holocaust or something like that. Something totally benign. It was like not at all, but she didn't have right think and right speak at that time frame when everybody was super everybody was getting kicked off the internet for even the smallest of things.
Yeah,
right?
Cancel culture was throbbing at its hardest. Yeah.
So, and she became one of the loudest victims of that, and then she went on and ended up getting picked up by, I think, Ben Shapiro's company, and started doing work acting in those things. And it's a fantastic situation for her. That being said,
who's a better Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot or this actress?
That's rough,
because I don't think Wonder Woman would have been a supermodel based on the Warrior Tribe, everyone else that they cast in that movie.
Realistically,
you know what I mean? I think she would have been pretty fucking rad in that role. Personally, I was like,
Gina Carano would have been more realistic in the idea of, but Diana Prince is supposed to be gorgeous according to the DC comic books. So Gal Gadot kind of fits that in that regard. I just don't think she has enough bulk. Like I always thought that. And so I don't know if you can mesh those two together, it'd probably be the best option.
Right. She's definitely got the physique for a role like that, and I think she would have been wonderful. That would be my recasting moment for big movies.
So, but she's suing Disney for what they did to her during that time frame, and that would be fine and all. Disney's getting kind of hammered from all directions right now, and they're absolutely just hemorrhaging money to the point where they're probably going to have to start dropping a lot of their properties due to just financial woes, and people are just kind of over it. And so her coming out a couple years later, coming out with a lawsuit wouldn't normally be a big deal. They'd be like, oh yeah, we've got the money to battle off somebody like Gina Carano. But unfortunately for Disney, she got some financial backing from none other than the Elon Musk, who's probably been the biggest champion of free speech that we've seen in a long time. And I think he'll just put his money behind anybody who he thinks got wronged in this regard of free speech. And I'm here for it. I think that Disney needs to get punched in the jaw a couple of times, if not completely, once like the Department of Education dismantled and become a memory of what they used to be. I think that Disney needs to go the way of Nick at Night on Nickelodeon, where it's just, oh, remember Nick? So and just go off into the annals of history, and we'll remember you fondly for when you actually were good. But you got to start putting antagonists back into your movies, Disney, or you're gonna lose it,
dude. So, I'm old enough to remember when the
Disney had villains,
when the VHS cassette of, was it Fantasia 2000 came out?
Yeah.
And not just like my mom, but people in their community were like up in arms about the suggestive nature of that animated cartoon.
Yeah.
If they, God rest her, if she could see Disney now, you know what I'm saying? Like,
oh yeah.
And that's not a long span of time. You know, we're talking under 25 years from the classic animation stuff to present day Disney material is pretty fucking mind blowing.
Yeah.
Like when you
wild
include, and this is enveloping all their properties, Marvel and Star Wars and everything else,
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I wish her the best. What do you know what she's suing for? Just defamation and money, probably.
Yeah, for firing her without actual provocation, and defamation of character. I would imagine it's just a giant civil lawsuit that she's probably. And when you've got her type of star power and spotlight, and then you put the megawatt gigantic light of Elon Musk and his money behind her, it's unstoppable. Like what is Disney going to do? They cannot spin the PR on this in any way that's going to look good for them.
They can settle. That's about the best they can do. Yeah,
that's what they're going to have to do, and that's only if they accept the settlement. But
the thing I wonder about, if she didn't break any rules for like grounds to be fired, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, do you think the Screen Actors Guild is actually going to corroborate her conduct and all the other things that are going to come into question during the, was this firing, legal or not, or ethical or not, or whatever the precedence is?
I don't think so. I think the Screen Actors Guild kicked her out.
Yeah.
So I think she'll probably go after them next.
That was my next question. Are we going to see a Disney first and then Fran Drescher second? Fran Drescher's the Screen Actors Guild chairperson. So.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Well,
the nanny.
That's interesting. The nanny.
It's like, wow, I would have never figured you'd be the person. All right. Cool.
Well, I found out that Patty Duke was for a really long time. So Patty Duke was for a couple of years, and it's never who you think.
You're right. Yeah. Like, oh wow, I would have never thought that. Exactly.
But somebody who's got, probably a pretty good career that has spanned TV, movies, and stage. And I think that is what is required.
Right.
So Fran Drescher fits, and so does Patty Duke. So I don't know. I have never looked down the list of who the presidents of the Screen Actors Guild has been. It's just these
probably not riveting content, but just throwing it out there that the treasure gem of UHF starring Weird Al Yankovic also starred Fran Drescher. So
that's a great movie.
Yeah, I love that movie.
That's a great movie.
Still,
yeah,
I love that movie
to this day. It holds up too. The other thing that I found hilarious is there is a new app out, and it is from the brilliant minds over at 4chan, who are the world's trolls.
I was gonna say, for the record, Not always brilliant minds.
Right, yeah.
I've got a pebble in my shoe from 4chan, but please continue.
Okay. But yeah, I mean they are the world's troll site.
Very much. Yeah.
And so, but
They're the
4chan
reason that this hand signal was quoted as being, you know, white power with the W and P, and convinced the whole
Right.
world and the woke left that that's okay.
I know people who got fired because of that nonsense.
Yeah. So
yeah.
You know,
But yeah,
4chan is 4chan.
Somebody over there at 4chan decided to come up with a new app, and it is a AI app. So what it does is it takes all of the app's called Dignif AI.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Dignify, but AI at the end of it. And what it does is you can take any picture from any of the e-girls, basically all the girls who just like dance around in either nude or in their underwear or whatever, and it digitally puts them in modest attire and covers them up, and then like tones down their makeup jobs and then makes them look like trad housewives.
Oh, this is great.
And
just
it's hilarious.
Bunch of turtlenecks and sweatpants.
Oh yeah, no,
Fantastic.
they're just it's not like they're not making them into Mennonite women or anything like that.
Right.
It's just regular kind of modern but very modest, and it's putting clothes on all of these women, and it's like, okay, so now how do they get mad about this?
Right.
Like they're going to be mad in some way. They're going to have to.
Oh, they have to be furious.
No, you got to let us be sluts. It's all, you know,
right.
Like, and just demanding.
Impinging on my artistic freedom, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be hilarious to see how this plays out. I am really looking forward to the next couple of months as this thing grows in popularity, and the backlash to it, and the war that will start over this one app. And it's going to be popcorn worthy. It's going to be really fun to watch what the culture is going to do with this scenario.
Yeah.
I'm just very, very excited for it. And then another thing
I can wholeheartedly recommend, before we move on, if 4chan is attached to any application, I recommend you not download a 4chan application to any device under any circumstance at any time.
Oh yeah, watch from a distance. Don't get involved.
This is a spectator sport.
For sure.
This one, I've got to put that out there. Please don't download anything that 4chan sponsors. Thanks.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. So, the next thing on the list is, I don't know if you caught the big story last week that became a bigger story due to the nature of it. This is a huge story, but it got overshadowed, and the lead got completely buried by how it was conducted. And so James O'Keefe, formerly of Project Veritas, always creating these sting ops, and everyone's always like, they're always on dates, and these people are just spilling the beans on all of their organizations, all of their nefarious activities, and just telling people on dates. And they actually have to put out memos into corporations saying, you cannot talk about this stuff on dates because it's probably James O'Keefe. And everyone's like, okay. But they do it anyway, and they always do it. They're always bragging about all the criminal activity that they're doing within government agencies or school board agencies or whatever, and he's constantly stinging these people. Well, in this particular case, it was somebody from the cybersecurity White House cabinet, somebody high up in the White House for cybersecurity that actually works with the president on a daily basis.
Nice.
This guy goes out on a date from a Tinder date, but it wasn't Tinder. It was Grindr. It was a Grindr date. Goes out on this Grindr date because he's gay, and he goes to dinner and just starts spilling everything. Just starts dumping the fact that the entire cabinet is completely worried that they know that Joe Biden is completely gone, that he does not have the faculties to run, that he is worse than he actually appears,
Right.
that they hate Kamala Harris even more. So they're frantically freaking out because they know that these two do not have the chops to win.
So far, I'm perfectly aligned with the Democratic Party on this one. Go on.
That they're not only incapable of winning, but they're incapable of continuing on, that they don't know what to do. So there's a whole bunch of background work going on to try to get them replaced without an election kind of thing. You know, he just starts spilling the beans on all of this stuff. Turns out, right, just dumping everything, and it's all on camera, all on film, from none other than James O'Keefe himself. Not one of his like producers hired help or people like sting operatives, you know, no one. It's him himself sitting there with a gay affect to his tone, like he's putting on a gay accent, and he's got glasses, Superman glasses. That's it. He has his hair combed a little funny, but it is 100% James O'Keefe, and the guy didn't know until the very, very end. You see him go, "You work for cybersecurity on that level, and you don't know who James O'Keefe is?" And he takes the glasses off, and he goes, "How did you not know who I am?" And the guy's like, "Oh, I know you. Oh no, I'm in trouble, huh?" Oh, and it just crashes in on him, and he realizes it. But it is the wildest stuff, and that ended up bearing the lead. That James, like the guy didn't even know it was James O'Keefe sitting there. It's just the memes coming out of that scenario are amazing.
The internet's undefeated with that stuff. This is something like I mentioned to you in the pre-show when you ran the spy meet. I saw a conversation at a dinner table that looked like two guys on a date with no volume, and it was like popping up on my feed a few times, and I never got around to figuring out, well, what's this all about? But I'm definitely going to do a little follow-up on that just to kind of see what was shared and stuff. And I wonder, is big media or social media taking down all the original transcripts and stuff? Or if it's that fresh, it's probably still out. But
it's still up, but I mean, everybody's doing the smart thing and just really just blasting Twitter with it, because it's going to stay up there, but they're not, you know, it will not, you know, they're going to suppress it on any of Mark Zuckerberg's platforms or YouTube or any of those. They're gonna at least bury it as much as they can, if not outright remove it. But it's I mean, it's kind of pointless when it's all over Twitter just floating around. Like, you know, what are you going to do?
Well, we'll see how long we last on YouTube as an example of that. And I mean that sincerely, you know, like we'll talk about it if you're listening audio only, but there's going to come a point where it's, you know, tone it down or you're gone. And I'm going to say we're gone. I'm toning nothing down. So, we'll just switch over to Rumble like everybody else, but whatever. There's a home out there.
That was interesting. And then
hell of a week.
Unless there's anything else that you want to chat about, I did my due diligence and actually watched not only all of the Sandman series that you had suggested, but then also Muscles and Mayhem, which was remarkable. So
let's do Sandman first, because we've been at this for a minute, and I'd love to hear your final thoughts, and you got to take me through the gem that was Muscles and Mayhem through your eyes. Okay. So Sandman, what'd you think? What happened?
Sandman was okay. Out of 10, I'll just straight up say it. Out of 10, I'll probably give it a 7. And 7 due to
that's a content 5 and a visual 9.
Exactly. So but it was remarkably written. It was very engaging. The choices of cast were spot on. And it was absolutely engaging as far as storyline goes.
Yep.
But it was gorgeous.
Yeah.
100% gorgeous. From beginning to end, every scene was a painting. Every shot was done with the perfect lighting. It was so meticulous in recreating the atmosphere that Neil Gaiman wanted for the visuals of his storytelling, that it was untouchable. It should have won awards for its ability to bring to life that comic book and that world. Absolutely stunning. So cannot take anything away from that. Mathematically, there just aren't that many gay people on the planet.
Right.
It's insane how many people. Like, I don't know if there was I can't even remember if there was actually a non homosexual character or couple in some capacity.
Bill Maher just did this infographic recently that I was laughing so hard about. It was like, before whatever, he's going by Generation X and Millennial and whatever, and it was like, by a certain time frame, only X number, like it was 5% people identified as LGBTQ. Then at, now 30+% of Americans are identifying that. And then he's like, so on a long enough trajectory, we're all going to be gay by like 2053. And it was like
if this show was any indicator.
Yeah, it was like a blazing rainbow correct. Hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, it was
I'm with you there. The show was pretty overt about, just jamming in that bar graph. Yeah.
It was every episode. It wasn't it was like a character here and there, which made sense for representation or whatever. But like every single episode, it was like, wow, there's no straight people in this universe at all.
At all.
Like
anywhere.
Yeah. And but yeah, I mean, if that was my only gripe, that's my only gripe. I don't really care one way or the other. I mean, if you really understand Neil Gaiman's writing, he was like Desire, one of Morpheus's siblings, even in the comic book, is androgynous. So, but that was basically about it. The rest of it was just kind of left to the imagination. There was no real overt LGBT stuff in there at all.
Right.
But the overall tone of it, the kids who were reading that for the most part were either goth kids,
right,
or the sexually questionable, or girls, or the ones that were so engrossed in comic book culture that they just knew good storytelling. But its primary demographic was kind of the off the beaten path kind of. What I'm saying is, if you read Sandman in the late 80s and early 90s, you were probably gay. But
not to put a finer point on it,
but
in a strange twist, I'm actually starting Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman, and it's part of a book club that's a longer story, but
sacrilegious. But I mean, the cast once again is on point, so I'm actually thinking about starting that one too. But yeah, Good Omens is something that I think is going to be a fascinating watch, and it's going to be at least clever.
Yeah,
the banter between, who is it, Michael Sheen and David Tennant?
I don't know, because I'm doing the book on tape, so I'm doing. I'm going to do the full cast reading. So there are 13 different narrators throughout this book, including both of the authors and stuff, and it's free right now on Spotify. I don't know if you can consume book on tape the way I do, but I prefer it to reading because I can stay focused while I'm doing other things, where most people are like, it's such a distraction, I have to read the book, and I'm like,
that's really what I should be doing all the time.
I'm not fucking reading. Yeah. That, me too. I got through a ton of really good content. I literally, my second go through, and the narrator's hard to listen to because he's British, and it's just the cadence and stuff. It's very hard for me to remain focused, but I just got through the Gulag Archipelago again on tape. And I mean, yesterday I finished it. So, I'm going to start Good Omens now for book club related reasons through work, which is a long story that I won't get into here. But I'll tell you how it goes.
All right. Sounds
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
So, Muscles and Mayhem.
All right. I wasn't going into this, wasn't sure which would be more gay, Sandman or Muscles and Mayhem. But it was decidedly like Sandman for sure in that category. But this one, man, was this a wild, fascinating ride. And when I tried to explain it later on, there really wasn't anything that like I could blow anyone's minds with, but it was so fun to watch because the nostalgia factor for me, because I used to watch this show as a kid and loved it. And it was just, and they weren't wrong. It was puzzling when it first came on. Like, what are we watching?
Yes.
You know, like this is something that's never happened before in television history, but it really just took you through this tapestry of the core group that got expanded throughout the years and who got brought in and all of the crazy stuff that was going on behind the scenes. And the fact that these people really got screwed and then ended up being okay with being screwed because of the relationships that they made on the show.
Isn't that wild? Like, they literally saw a sky full of storm clouds and went, there's no storm clouds. It's just full of silver linings. Yeah. Like they remain friends. They're starting social media stuff together. They're all in healthy capacities, most of which have overcome addictions in some fashion. Like, except for the contestant, that main. And like, was that not where you're just like, holy shit, that was a left turn I wasn't expecting.
I was sitting in this chair watching this TV while I was like drawing. And I was like, la, 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 kind of like glancing up every once in a while. And then that happened. It's like, what? And like completely paused me.
Smuggling people over the border is how his life turned out.
A coyote. Like, and it was like the daddest dad. He was the oldest contestant at 36. He had a slew of kids. He didn't even like being on the show. His dad wanted him to be on it. And like,
it was so
just
good
to make extra money for his family. And he had no attachment to being on the show, but he was really good at it.
Yeah.
And then like later on, I don't know, became a coyote and then spent 2 years in a Mexican prison, but they knew me from the TV show. So they treated me really well. Yeah. I mean, it was like, what is happening? But the
gal that got married to the consultant guy that used to be the military drill instructor that she hated when she first met him. And now they're like happily married and started a family and shit. Yeah. Like the whole thing was like, just like,
ultimately the cast became like, if you took a cast from any show in that time period and then tried to do a Where Are They Now, you would get probably, if you're lucky, a 50-50 split of complete and utter destroyed human beings and then a handful of people who got out alive. You know, this one, they all like 80% of them came out and they were just like, no, we're all still friends. We all beat addiction. We're all hanging out together. We're all fit. We're all doing, you know, everything's great. We're actually doing really good. We all still communicate. Yeah, it was weird, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I love that show. And they have all these fond memories. And except for there's one gladiator that they showed, and it was the Malibu surfer dude. Yeah. He looked hard. Yeah. They didn't bring him in on the rest of it, and he looked like he's struggling. Yeah. But outside of that, the rest of them that they focused on, because there was a bunch that were in the tertiary that they didn't really focus on, but the core of them that they actually did, I would love to see a follow-up series on this and kind of go deeper into some of the, because you feel like you only got like a fraction of the stories. That there wasn't enough time to really put, even in 5 episodes.
I was going to say, I don't even think there was 6 hours worth of content here, but I found it bizarrely engaging at every scene. I was just like, wow. And some of it you knew, and you're like, I could see where this is going to play out. But even still, the way it did, and the development of getting to know these people, because I was telling you, a lot of them were kind of like in the first episodes, like, where do I sit? Which camera am I supposed? What do I say? Like, I don't know what the fuck. And then by the end of it, they're like opening up about their lives and telling you how it really is and how excited they are to be where they're at today and shit. And I was just like, this is incredible. But it was very funny too at every point in the way. I think whoever produced that entire thing did a marvelous job for it being an unsanctioned docuseries, you know?
Right. It made me feel for all of these people that I only knew as like basically real life superheroes on TV when I was a kid, and actually humanize them to a point where you actually were like, oh, like they're actually cool people.
Right.
And like, and it was really engaging in that regard, where they were also very funny. There was a lot of good humor that was going through it. And then there was like the animated clips of like them telling stories that were really great.
Right.
But like, what a bizarre world, because at the time WWF was going on, or WWE, and this was real life version of kind of what was going on there. And these guys were getting absolutely hurt all the time. Like, it was
a show like this could not be made today. Yeah.
Yeah, all of it was real, and they just didn't have any concept of how to do it safely, but they just did it anyway. And so not only were contestants getting hurt, but a lot, like almost all of the gladiators got hurt in one way or another. And dude, they were all the steroids they were doing, and all the crazy partying on the bus, and like
there's something for everybody in this show. Even a few people that didn't make it through their addiction, like the sex addicted director that was a complete creep ass, even in the docuseries. It was just like,
wow,
he did what behind the scenes on set? And like, I loved that was one of the best pieces of cinema to just fall backwards into on accident in the last 2 years for me. I was like, this is great.
I agree. I think because I like documentary and docuseries.
Yeah.
But most of them, even the ones that are kind of the quirky, off the beaten path ones, tend to be a little darker. Right. And this one was
heavily agenda driven. It did not center around the human spirit or a single person. It was like they're very agenda focused. Yeah. I think it has to do with who finances them personally. I agree. Either way, I'm with you.
But yeah, no, I would give this probably an 8.5 out of 10. It was entertaining, completely engaging all the way through.
8.5 megs, just in case you're wondering on the scale of megs.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was fantastic. I loved every bit of it, and I highly recommend it. I think not only is it fascinating, but it's pretty uplifting in a way that kind of you don't really get a lot with those docuseries. You typically you're left like feeling icky or crushed by the end of those. And this one, you're like, yeah, you know what? That was fun.
Right.
And it got you through to the end, and you feel okay about it.
It's not overt, like in any type of direction, but you're definitely emotionally attached to the people that you've been watching for 5.5, 6 hours throughout this docuseries for sure, with some really bizarre twists and turns along the way that also happen to be just comically understated. I mean, it was just really, really good. So
good.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, I had a blast.
Yeah. I don't know what's on the docket for me this week. Movies are kind of lame right now. Like, I've been kind of scoping through all of my streaming services, and I can't really find anything that like I've been like itching to see.
You know why they suck right now?
Oh, the writer's strike.
We had a writer's strike. Now we don't have a writer's strike, so we have to watch a bunch of shit until we get to, whatever's next.
I hate that so much, but okay. Yeah, you're right.
That's my take on it. Probably not. I mean, I'm kind of digging through the classics too, so.
I just realized I just started last night. I started watching the Reacher series.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I'm about 3 episodes in, and I'm not hating it, so I'll give an update on it later. But the Jack Reacher movies apparently are nowhere near what the books actually are as far as the character and stuff.
This is a Lee Child series, correct?
I think so.
One of those like, Jason Bourne writer type of guys that does espionage and shit. So my understanding, the principal grievance with this was the rights were picked up by this studio. The studio wanted to make a blockbuster, and for my money, Tom Cruise did a fun job. He's fun to watch, and I thought they were great. Where the purists or the diehards, if you're into Lee Child, are probably going to really plant your flag in the ground. Is Jack Reacher is supposed to be like north of 6'4", built completely out of muscle and like the human incarnation of a modern titan with just the unbelievable moral drive to execute what's right by his own brand of justice.
Right.
And that's where they're diverging, because Tom Cruise is, God bless him, 5'5" or 6 or 7, somewhere in that range. And so they're just like, this little dude is not what we read in the books and stuff. And then obviously they Hollywoodized quite a bit. So the series is probably closer to the book because there's a longer span of time to really drive nuance through the content material. I also had that on my I'd like to watch this. I just didn't get to it yet. Because they're on like season 2 or something by now, right? Season 2, season 3, something like that. Yeah. So yeah, I'm curious to see what you think about it.
Alan, I don't know, Rickman or Richmond or whatever, the guy who's
didn't Alan Rickman die?
Yeah, that's Severus Snape.
Yeah, God rest him. I like Alan Rickman.
I don't know. I can't remember this guy's name, but he's enormous.
Yeah, he's the guy they should have cast for it according to the book, right? Yeah,
and he's doing a really good job. I've actually enjoyed him. I watched that Titans show, which is the DC Comics, and he plays Hawk in that show of Hawk and Dove, and he did a really great job in that show. He was actually one of my favorite characters in that one, and then he was also in Blue Mountain State, which was a sports college comedy show about college football, where he played a super manic weirdo linebacker guy. And then prior to that, he was actually in Smallville. He played Aquaman in Smallville.
Yeah, I was going to say, I knew he was in Smallville, but yeah.
Yeah, so I've actually really enjoyed him over the course of time, and he's gotten better as he's gotten older.
Nice.
And but he's perfect for this role. He's actually been it's been enjoyable to watch. I'm probably going to get a couple more episodes in tonight before bed. So, but yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know what's on the docket for me. I'm trying to go through. I'm trying to decide on whether I do a series review, like Indiana Jones or Star Wars or a Matrix or something, or if I go through a Pacino essence and watch a lot of the Pacino classics, because he is one of my all-time, if not top 2 favorite American actors. Yeah,
a little Heat, a little Scent of a Woman,
everywhere in there. Because there's a Pacino, and then there's a hoo-ah Pacino that like starts right at Scent of a Woman, where he's just
right.
She's got a wonderful ass, and you got your head all the way up it. This crazy fucking Pacino that just never stopped after a certain period of time. So I'm very interested.
Godfather, Scarface, and then you go into the like version of him,
right, where he's just completely over the top and stuff. So I don't know. There's a few series I might toy with in that, but we'll see. I'll keep you posted one way or the other.
Cool, good to hear. Yeah. Well, anything else you got going on?
I think that's it for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Me too. So, I will. I very much enjoyed our presidential cabinets.
Yeah.
And this week has given us a plethora of bizarre stories to kind of bounce off of each other. So
fun content to follow up on for sure. Jesus.
Yeah. Which is what all of it really was.
Right.
Like all the things that we talked about tonight is like to be continued.
No, for sure. I mean, I knew going into this year, like, election year, we're going to see some wild shit, but the stuff that's been popping up hourly instead of daily is like concerning. It's like, Jesus. Yeah.
So the timeline is speeding up. So
well, cool. I guess we'll see y'all probably next week. You can check us out on Spotify, iHeartRadio. I think we're pretty much everywhere you can get your podcasts. We're also live on YouTube. If you want to come say hi. Or drop us an email, the Modern Relics Podcast. I think it's modernrelicspodcast@gmail.com. And we'll keep on keeping on. So we will see you guys next time.
Bye, guys.
See ya.